Welcome, screenprintingartist.com. This is a tutorial. We're going to do a hunting design, and before we get started, I just want to highlight that if you go to screenprintingartist.com, my website, you can sign up and get this free art and training guide. All you have to do is submit your email and be on the news list, and I'll send you announcements whenever I make a new tutorial or I open a new class. One of the classes I'm running right now, if you like this tutorial, I'm running a screen printing artist boot camp, CorelDRAW 0 to 60 boot camp, which talks all about screen printing design for CorelDRAW for screen printers, for creating t-shirt and apparel designs. So check both of those out. Now let's go ahead and start and get to work on this design. When you want to make a hunting design, obviously it's helpful if you have a couple of pieces to get started with. I'm going to go ahead and just make this design as quick as I can, kind of from scratch. Let's do our type first. Write all our type out. Go ahead and finish typing it out here. Kind of a funny saying, is useful on t-shirts anyways, right? And we control K, so I typed it all out, and then control K breaks it apart, move the lines up that you want to switch out, and your main typeface is going to go in here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit using the zoom tool, and then we have to pick our type fonts. So I'm going to, for the main font, I want a blockier font. I'm going to use GeoSlab here. And I'm going to spread the font out a little bit, just so that if I put an outline on it, it's not going to hit, one character isn't going to hit the next. And I just use the shape tool to do that. And you just grab this icon and kind of slide it over. And then I'm going to extend it up. I'm going to make this. There's a couple things I'm going to kind of go through this rather quickly. These two fonts, you can kind of click it. I'm going to click this one. So I hold the shift key to select them both. Then I use this font. It didn't really matter that it was upper and lowercase, because as far as this font's concerned, it kind of just all stays the same. I'm not going to tuck this one here like that. I'm not going to tuck this over here like that. And you can kind of look at the font point size to make sure they fit the same size. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to make a larger, just so it's a little easier to read here, since there is an upper and lowercase. I'm going to make a larger, almost like a initial caps, as they call it, on these fonts. So I don't want to change it from a font at this point, so I'm just going to control K, and that breaks it apart into 3 different words, so you can see here. And then I can enlarge this by hitting control K again, and control K again. Do the same thing down here, control K, and then for this one, control K, and control K again, and that makes it so they're individual letters. They're still the font though. The font is still live, as you would say. And one thing I can do is I can hold the shift key down or the control key and select in between. So if I select here and I hold the shift key, I can select multiple. I just select those 3, and then I want to enlarge them just a little bit so they look a little bigger. What that does is it makes it a little easier to read, which is a good thing as far as t-shirts go. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. Just holding the shift key just to select the first character. I can slide this over, slide that one over, just so it lines up, and I can kind of move this over. And then I hold the shift key down, then I can nudge it over, power nudge it over a little bit. Select all these, move it over a little bit. Here, I'll just select them all. Use the marquee tool. If you hold the shift key down, it holds it to the baseline, so you don't come off the baseline. The same thing with this. When I hold it, I hold the shift key down so it doesn't go up or down. It just goes to the baseline. So that way I can kind of position it right amount of space here. And the same thing with this. I can hold the shift key down and I kind of move it right amount of space, but not too much right there. See, it kind of locks it to that baseline. Then you can either group them together, which is what I'll do here. Select them all and group, and then select them all and group them. And then I can kind of shrink them just a little bit, just so it fits in here. There. and then this, so I can kind of tuck it up in there, and yet it gives me a little bit of space there. Now I'm going to go ahead and save my file, Control Shift S. I'll just save it, box. Always want to save your file as you progress, just so you don't lose things. I'm going to zoom out a little bit using the zoom key, and now I'm going to import a couple of things. So I hit the Control I key, and I'm going to import this camouflage pattern. I just got this free camo pattern offline. I think it's like an SVG file, but it imports into CorelDRAW 7, X7, okay? And when it comes in, though, you're going to see it says SVG. Now, to make it useful here, we're going to ungroup it. So hit the Control U key, ungroup it a couple times. See, I just hold the Control key down and hit the U key a bunch of times, and it gives me 53 objects. So I'm going to go ahead and group those. And then you can edit them if I needed to. So I held the Control key down, I can go in here and actually select this color if I wanted to edit it or change it to a different color. I want to make a spot color, that sort of thing. Now this is the nice thing about this pattern, as some patterns you can get offline, is that it's repeatable. So I'm going to click it, hold the Shift key, drag it over, and then right click right here, and I duplicate it. And then I can use the arrow keys to nudge it over until the pattern lines up. Like that. And then I hit the Control D key, and it duplicates my last duplication that I did with the right key. But you can see that I still see a line here, so I'm not that thrilled about that. I'm going to look real quick and see if I can get rid of that. Well, when you zoom in, you don't really see it. So the question is, do I need to move this? So I'll click that one. See, when I move it, then I kind of see it, but it's not real prominent. So maybe I just need to move the whole thing over. I shift and selected those two. And if I move the whole thing over just one more, that looks better. Alright, I'm going to leave it there. And then what we'll do is we'll just group this whole thing. I'm going to group it. So I took this tiled pattern that I got, just kind of a free clip art thing, and then I'm going to take this, I'm going to go just slightly bigger than this the type right here, like that. And then I position it over it, and then I shift page down, and now I want to break my font apart right here. So see, it's a editable font right now. Control Q breaks it apart. Now it's a curve, and you can see all the nodes, right? So I can't edit it anymore, but I don't need to, because what I want to do is I want to take this, and now I want to go Effects, and I want to go Power Clip, Place Inside Frame, and then I click on it, and now I put that power clip inside of here, right? If I don't like the position, I could always move it around, but for now I think it looks okay. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click this, and then I'm going to come and put a contour on it. So I have the contour palette open, but if you didn't have it open, you could go Effects and Contour and open it, and it would open on the sidebar here. And I'm going to put double contour, so two contours to the outside contour there, 0.07, and it doesn't really matter what the fill is. I just want something that I'll see when I contour it. I'll say Apply, and so you can see it pops out two contours. Now that's a little big because I don't want them hitting. So what I can do here is I can go down a couple of points, and then I'll hit it again. So I still have it hitting here, so I'll go down one more. There. Now I'm not touching. See, I don't want that yellow part touching here, because that'll give me a cleaner finished design. And then as soon as I'm done, you see how it says Contour Group at the bottom? Hit Control K, break it apart. Now I got two objects. I got a group of two objects. So these two contour things are grouped. If I moved them off, that's what they look like. They're behind it right now. And I hit Control U to ungroup them. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this we can colorize these now. I can make one orange, and I can make the inside one white, just to kind of give it a hunting look. You know, hunters wear orange, of course, right? Here, and we'll hit orange. Now, in case this font, I'm happy with the font. I'm really not going to change this font either. So if I wanted to at this point, I want to make it so that it's not, if I click inside the curve, hold the Control key, you can see it's still a curve. So what I want to do is I'm going to ungroup these, Control U, 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 and then I'm going to select all of these, Control Q, and I make them all one piece. And this avoids at a later time, if somebody doesn't have the font installed, or something, you know, it just converts it to a curve. So you can see it's all a curve now. And then if I Control L, I combine them all into one piece. All right, so they're one piece here, and now they're all individual, but now I'm going to Control L, and I'm going to combine them all. All right, I'm going to save my file, Control S, zoom back out. Now to really see the way this is going to look on the shirt color that it's going to go on, it's a good idea to have a background that color. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and import a shirt color that I have because I want to put it on a heather gray shirt. I'm going to import it. And this is kind of a heather gray background. Again, something you can get online. It's a little bit too much of a pattern though, so I'm just gonna, just for what we're doing here, I'm just gonna blur it a little bit. I'm gonna here, I'm gonna ungroup it just so that it's not a CDR, and I'm gonna convert the bitmap. I'll make it a grayscale 200, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna blur it just slightly. So I'm gonna blur, Gaussian blur. I want the heathered pattern, but I don't really want the visible, you know, kind of like weave to it, because that'll interrupt with my when I'm doing my design. So then I'll blur it, put it on there, and then you know, you could lighten or darken it too using the other tools, but for now that'll work. And then this, what we're going to do here, so I have this ready to go. I'm going to take this design now, I'm going to angle it. So I'm going to select everything. I'm going to click it one more time just to turn on the rotate and skew modes. And I'm going to skew the design down by grabbing that side mode and skew it up. And then I'm going to skew it up just a little more this way. That might be a little bit too much. I don't want to go there. That's about right. And then I'm going to click one more time to go back to regular scale mode. And I'm going to stretch it just a little bit. So make it a tiny bit taller. I don't want to go too much, but just a tiny bit. And then now I'm going to do the extrude tool here. And again, before you do any of these commands like contour, extrude, or something where it does a bunch of with a computer, you're asking the computer to do a lot of tasking where you might have to wait, it's always a great idea to save your file. So Control S saves it. Now I open the extrude, and what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to grab this outer border, this orange border here, and I'm going to create a back parallel extrusion. So what I do is I hit edit, and then what I do is I find the little, see that little X right in the middle? I grab that, and then I kind of move it a little bit just to see where it's at. Now if it's hard to see on this gray background, one of the tricks you can do is to go into wireframe mode. So you go to Control Alt V W, I believe, and then hit enter, and then you go to wireframe mode, and sometimes it's easier to see your extrusion in this mode than in your enhanced mode. And see, you can see where that blue is at. You want to go like a right angle 45 degrees or so, like this, so it's going to be moving away from that at like 45 degrees. I'm going to hit apply. I'm just going to see if I like that from where I'm at here. It looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and leave that. I'm going to Control K, which will unbreak the extrusion from the background, so I can move it then. And then I'm going to go back into enhanced mode, Alt V E, so I can see it. And then I'm going to make this black, and then I'm going to also combine it with, I'm going to hold the shift key and I'm going to select the original orange layer above it. I select both of them by holding the shift key. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here where there's, I'm going to put a point, probably a 4 point. Let's go with I'll go a 3 point. And I'll hit Define Fill and Scaled Object. If I didn't hit Define Fill on this orange one, it would put the outline in front and cut into it, but I just want to go behind it. And then I'm going to turn these on because I don't want any little weird points that can sometimes happen with your, so I'm going to round the line caps, I'm going to round the corners, because sometimes that'll happen with like an extrusion. You'll get a weird little flare or something somewhere. So there we go. And then I'm going to take these, hold shift key, and I'm going to shift page up so I put it in front. So I put it in front of this. Now I might want to shrink this just a little bit because I don't want it to overlap. And then this one, I'm just going to simply do a shortcut here. I'm going to right click and grab and drag over, and then when it makes it, see how it makes that crosshair, I'm going to let go. I'm going to say copy outline there. So I just duped my outline. I'm going to do the same thing here. Click on that, drag, and then right click, and then copy outline here, and see it copies that. And then you can select both of them, and you control D and duplicate, and then what you do is you move them slightly using the arrow keys. You move them off and then up. So I hit them like 3 or 4 times over and then up, and then control page down puts them down one level, and then you can fill them with black solid. So you could basically get like here. I'm going to move them just a tad closer. Now I could extrude those as well, but since it's a complex kind of distressed font, the extrusion would be really complex and kind of a pain, and it's easier just to dupe them. If you wanted it to look like an extrusion, what you could do is you could duplicate that again, and then like move it part way. Here you can kind of see this. I'm going to move it like halfway and just kind of fill in there with another duplicate. So it almost looks like an extrusion too now. See, because I duped it again and moved the middle one over. So now we've got our design. It's working pretty good here. I'm going to do a couple of finishing touches. I'm going to save it. I want to add some antlers. I want to make a little more space with this, just so it's a little more legible. So I'm going to bump that up just a tiny bit, and move it over just a tiny bit. So I'm just using the nudge key just to kind of center it right. Now I want to import, Control I. I'm going to import some antlers. And these are just, clip art antlers you can find anywhere. It's just a, I'm going to ungroup it. It's just a bitmap right now. See, so it's just a bitmap image of some antlers. Well, I need to make that into, it's black and white. I need to make that into something usable for me. So I'm going to trace that real quick. I'm just going to quick trace it. It doesn't need to be perfect for what I'm doing. It just needs to trace okay. And then I know I have like black and white on top of here. I'm going to ungroup it. And then I'm just going to select this antler right here. Control L. I kind of like that one better than this one. So I'm just going to use that one only. And I Control L to make the merge of these cutouts with the rest of it. And now I can delete the rest of this. Like I don't need any of this stuff. And I don't need the bitmap. So I select all of it. Bitmap and the old antler, delete it. Now I've got this antler, and I can just Control D, hold the Control key, and then just slide it over and flip it. And then I'll hold the Shift key, nudge it over a little bit. And then I've got my 2 antlers here. I'm going to select them and group them. And then I'm going to move over here. I'm going to take them over here. And now I skewed this file. I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. So I want to skew the antlers slightly just to kind of go with the file. I have them down here. Let me move up a tiny bit. Maybe I'll go a tiny bit smaller. And I'll squeeze it over. I don't want it to be touching there. So I'm going to skew it just a little bit and make it come up just a little bit. There, like that. And we'll see if we can get this to work right here. Okay, and then I'll make my gray a little bit bigger so we can see. And then of course this, we need the same color black because that'll fit with the design there. I'm going to shift page down. So I put it behind there. Now I want to connect these, so I just make a quick shape. I'm just going to just double click, double click, double click, double click, and click. And then I kind of make a solid click. So just going to take this. These are grouped, so I'm going to ungroup them. And then click this third piece. So then I got 2 antlers in that piece. I'm going to merge them right up there. So that combines them all into one piece. Hold the Shift key, push, and then click down. Control down. So I just clicked it and the background, put it to the back, so it went behind the rest of the design. And now I'm gonna make a little outline here. So I'm gonna click this and then right click, drag, and then let go, copy outline. So now I made an outline on here, and I'm gonna make that outline. I'm gonna right click here, make it white. So you can kind of see it's a white outline now. And I want to move this piece down just a little bit. Just a little bit. There. This one up just a little bit. And let me zoom out. And let me save it. So now we're saved the design. I want to make one more thing to kind of tie it together. I think I'm just going to make like a big crosshair to put behind everything. To make that quick, what you can do is just hold the Control and Shift key, make a circle right here. I'm going to control D and then hold the shift key and just make a smaller circle, like kind of inside of it. Keep the shift key depressed, click the other one, control L, so that you made basically a round, not donut, but a round shape you can fill just the outside. And then I'm going to make the top part of the crosshair here. If I was real technical, I would probably research and make a real scope. But for this, we're okay. Just doing a simple crosshair here. I hit the C key to center it, and I can click this, drag it down, about the same distance, right click, and then I'm going to hold the shift key, click here, and then I'm going to click again so that both of them are selected and you can rotate them. I'm going to grab that side, rotate. I'm going to grab it around. Now, when I move it, I hold the control key, and that'll lock it so that it'll go to 45-degree increments. So I go right here, and then I right click. And so I duplicated it. So now what I can do is I can grab all of these, I can weld them together, and then I've got my crosshair. And I can take it over here, right here, and just drop it behind here, make it all white, no outline, and then click the back, again that back pattern, drop it down here, and I can pull this down a little bit, like that. So that kind of gives us a centered crosshair to kind of work with this thing. We could go centered on the design, but I think I like it better if it's centered on the deer head part. So we'll go right there, like that. And you could always go just a tiny bit bigger. Now, to like finish this design out, a couple things we can do. One thing that I like to do on designs, let me go ahead and group this, group it. I'll hit P, center it to the page. One thing that I like to do sometimes on designs like this is add a tiny bit of a distress. I'm going to show you a manual distress that I really like to finalize the design. It doesn't work as well on a heather gray, but it's kind of a neat way to do a distress. So I'm going to do that real quick. Basically, you just click and then you hold the control key, click again, and then double click on the shift key, turn it into I clicked here to turn it into a curve so I can stretch it just a little bit. So I stretch it just a tiny bit, and I click it again, control D, and then I hold the control and flip it. So I just duplicated the line. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see better. And then select both, control L, combine them, and then you click your nodes again and you combine the top and the bottom. So now you have this little slice, right? Basically, and for convenience or so visibility wise, I'll turn it red, and then you can kind of see it. Now what do I do with this? I'm going to zoom out a little bit and save my file. Save it. Control S. I'm going to move over a little bit here. And what I do with this is I'll stretch this one longer, and then I'll make a couple of these here. This one, and then one a little closer, and then one over here. And then I'll take this and I'll pull them over, right click, and then I'll shrink them. And that creates another piece, and then I'll take all of them and I'll pull them down and I'll right click and then I'll shrink those. And then I'll move them up, and then I'll move those over and right click again. And then you get this kind of pattern, and then what you can do then is take everything and just move it over a little bit. And you can see how you start to get like a kind of a wood look to it, which is, it's kind of a cool distress because it still can be kind of random just from the fact that you're throwing it in, together like that and randomizing it. But it's a nice distress because it's not real memory heavy on the computer. I'm going to group it, all the pieces, and I'm going to right click to take all the outline off, and now I'm going to move over here. And you'll see it doesn't work perfect on the heather gray because it's going to show up in spots on the heather gray a little bit, but it'll still give you the effect of the distress. And it slices and it just takes out just little pieces of the design, like little slices, which is kind of nice. And with distresses, like a lot of times what I'll do is, if you want to color the distress the same color as the background, what I do is I'll make a box and then I'll just grab some of the color from the background, like one of these grays, the middle gray, and I'll fill this box, and then I'll say no outline to the box. And then what I do is I'll right click this and just drag it over, and then go on my and touch that, and then I'll say copy fill outline to group, and see how it copies and fills to that entire group right here. And you can see this here, and that's kind of like a distress that can go on top of it. Now, like I said, it doesn't work all that great on this heather. And so what's the solution for that? Well, one thing you can do, and it takes just a little bit, but it works really well to get this distress. I just flipped it, so I control flipped it this way to get this distress so that it fits right into this. Is take all of your stuff here, and you're going to select it all now. I'm going to ungroup it, and I'm going to select all my active objects here. I'm going to group them, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them over, set them out. So I'm going to transfer, arrange, transformations, and I'm going to just go with position, and then open the position one, and I'm just going to move this over, say, 10 inches, so 10 on the x-axis. I'm going to hit apply, and so right there you can see it moved it over. So I'm going to hit Control Z to move it back, and then I'll duplicate it, Control D, and then I'll hit apply. So I moved a duplicate exactly 10 inches. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just leave it grouped here, and I'm going to just go over my black. I'm going to hit fill, and then I'm going to hit outline and everything. And you see everything becomes black. Now this is power clip, so that isn't going to work. So what I can do is I can go in here and click power clip, and then I can just, in this case, I can either extract the power clip, or I can just delete it to get rid of it. I'm just going to get it out of the way by hitting D and delete. That way I just get it off of the surface, and I want underneath, the objects underneath, fill it in as black. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick workaround here, because this is all together. I'm just going to, it's going to sound weird, but trust me on this. I'm going to convert it to a bitmap, a grayscale bitmap. It doesn't need to be high res, it just has to have somewhat of an edge. I'm going to say OK, converting it to a bitmap, and then I'm going to trace it. And I'm just going to do a quick trace on this. And then all I'm doing is I'm creating a solid outline of this. And you can see I just created a solid outline on top of this. Now I'm going to ungroup it, and then I'm going to delete just the outside pieces here. Delete that, delete that, delete that, and delete that. And then underneath is the original bitmap. You can see that down there. I'm going to delete that. Now, do I need these white pieces? Let's see. Yes, I do need those white pieces. So I'm going to grab all of this, and I'm going to hit Control L. And then this whole thing, I should change color into whatever color I want. Now in this case, I am not going to add a color to it, but I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to move it back. So I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to go negative position. I'm going to go -10. I'm going to hit apply, and it's going to go right on top of my whole design, see? But now what I can do is I can move this on top of it, right? See how it slices the design up nicer? I'm going to take this group of 275 objects, I'm going to effects, I'm going to power clip, place it inside the frame, and I'll make that a power clip frame. And now you see it's not on that heathered background. And I can click this, and I can say no fill. And now I just have that distress just on my image, and not on the heathered background, and that actually looks good. Now the distress, if it's too thick, I can actually click this, and I can hold the control key, and I can go in to the power clip, and it'll go into the power clip, and it'll let me adjust just this part of it, right? I can adjust, maybe that's, it's too, maybe the pieces are too big, so I can create duplicates here. I can create one like over here, and move it off so it's not too dense in the middle. And then I can hold shift, select these, and then move these down and have them go right here. and then I can hold the control key and go off everything, click here, and it'll zoom out of the power clip again. And so that way you can create this final distressed design for a t-shirt pretty quickly, just using a couple pieces of clip art and some fonts and a couple of techniques. So if you like this, head over to my website, sign up for the newsletter, screenprintingartist.com, and you can get the training guide. Thanks a lot.